All aboard!
All right. Looks like we got about 20 people with us, and hopefully we'll get more. Tell your friends to come out and join us if they're watching or they're around. Call them up, let them know to tune in so that they can learn about this exciting car too. So I'd like to welcome everybody. This is kind of very unique, and I think the first time in the history of the 20th Century Railroad Club we are doing a virtual presentation for you. I know the 20th Century normally holds their meetings and has exciting speakers down at the Founders Room in Union Station, but because of the virus, we haven't been able to meet as a railroad club for several months now. So Joe Kaczynski and Trent and some of the people on the board, Ed and some of the other people, came up with this wonderful idea to try a virtual program. And that's exactly what we're going to do tonight. This is going to be a trial because we're not sure how long we can all be apart from each other. So we thought we'd try this as a virtual program, and I guess I'm the guinea pig tonight. My name is Robert Taburn, and my dad was one of the original members of the 20th Century Railroad Club going back in the 70s and 80s, and I've spoken several times to the group, I think in 2009, 2010, 2011, about some of my books, and was friends with a lot of the members going back to our Trails and Rails days on the Empire Builder. Gosh, 10, 15 years ago now, I guess. So we're honored that you're joining us this evening, whether you're joining us live here at 7:05 Central Time on Wednesday, June 24th, or maybe you're watching the replay of this. So we are here at the Wisconsin Great Northern Railroad. I am a couple connections here to the railroad. I serve as one of the directors at the railroad. I'm the director of passenger development. Took the job up here in December with Greg and Mardell and Alexander, our owners here at the railroad. Moved up here about 6 months ago to take this. Also president of the Midwest Rail Rangers, and we are a nonprofit group who works with the 20th Century Railroad Club and the Wisconsin Great Northern. We do a narration on a lot of your trips. I think this weekend we were supposed to be doing the Galesburg thing with the 20th Century Railroad Club, going to Galesburg and Peoria with you guys. So we can't do that because of the virus, but we're up here and we are going to take you on board for an exciting tour tonight. We're so glad you're joining us, and I hope this works well. I hope you can see me well and hear me well. And again, this is an experiment, first time in the history of 50 years of the Railroad Club that we're doing this. So we're up here, and this is a Santa Fe high-level lounge. There are only 6 of these ever built. These were built between 1954 and 1956 for the Santa Fe Railroad, Atchison, Topeka, and the Santa Fe Railroad. There's 6 of them ever built, and this is one, about the only one you can regularly ride on today. And we'll go through a little bit more of the history of the lounge cars. They basically ran on the Santa Fe from 1956 until 1971 on the El Capitan between Chicago and Los Angeles. So they would have went through Kansas City and Albuquerque, more or less the route of the Amtrak Southwest Chief today. So there were only 6 of them, and that's all they really needed to have 5 moving at any time, and kind of 1 spare kept in Los Angeles, or maybe Chicago most of the time, though, down in Los Angeles. So a very unique piece of railroad equipment behind me here. Again, operated on the Santa Fe until 71, until all 6 cars went into Amtrak service, and they continued to operate in Amtrak service through the 70s and 80s on mostly the Southwest Limited, the Southwest Chief trains, and they were all in Amtrak service until about 2001. And that's where 5 of them were 5 of the 6 were chosen to be Pacific Parlor cars on Amtrak, which you might be more familiar with if you're younger. Don't remember the El Capitan days, but maybe you do. And 5 of the 6 best ones were chosen. So the sixth one that was taken out of service, it is currently sitting in a railroad yard in Madison, Illinois, just on the Illinois side of the Mississippi River, and it's in very poor, non-operable shape. So that leaves 5 parlor cars that were with Amtrak until Amtrak retired them in February of 2018. So yes, just a little over 2 years ago. All 5 of those cars were put up for auction to the highest bidder, and one of those cars is behind me, which is the this was the former Napa Valley Amtrak 39972. So Wisconsin Great Northern was the successful bidder of that car. 2 of the cars went to a gentleman in Texas, and he apparently is going to use them. We heard from private use of his family. They are still in Beech Grove, Indiana, so he has not even picked those cars up yet. And then the other 2 went to the Steam Museum in Owasso, Michigan, so not very far if you go the other way, I guess, from Chicago. And they only use those right now on their Christmas train. So 2 in Michigan, 1 in Wisconsin, 1 in Illinois, 2 in Indiana. So all 5 of the, or 6 of the cars are really in the Midwest, which I kind of found interesting. So let's walk and let's get on the train here. We are, beautiful day here in Northwest Wisconsin. I was telling those folks who joined in earlier. Had a little rain showers. We are 1 hour south of Duluth, Minnesota, exactly. About 2.5 hours from the Twin Cities, or about 5.5, 6 hours from you folks probably watching us in Chicago. These are all the other equipment down here that the railroad owns. About 30 or 40 other passenger cars, and maybe if you enjoy the presentation, you see down there, keep some of our locomotives. There's our Doodlebug, a caboose, and another switch engine. So if you enjoy the presentation, maybe Joe and Trent will ask us back, and we can do more of these fun talks for you. But just showing you the rail yard here before we get on the train. And I think Candace is going to show us, this is our educational coordinator, Candace, and she's going to show us the theater.
Hi everyone. I am not a big rail fan, but I enjoy giving programs and teaching people new things that they haven't learned from. So we're going to step aboard the train, and the first stop we're going to make is the Kachina Coffee Shop. So as we come in here, what is now the theater for those younger folks that rode on Amtrak. Got some lights flickering, that's all right. This used to be the Santa Fe's Kachina Coffee Shop. The coffee area was back here, and now this is the theater where Amtrak would show movies, usually about twice a day, once in the morning for the kids and at night for the adults. So we're going to head upstairs and show you some of the upstairs features also.
One thing I wanted to point out that was kind of interesting that we learned here, if you remember, well, we'll show you what this area used to look like. Up until the renovations, this area here used to be the original bar from the Kachina Coffee Shop. And this is really cool. And you probably never got to play around with this because this is a theater on Amtrak. And these 3 cabinets here, they just look like regular cabinets under the television set. But these are actually, of course, we don't have a light set up here, and it's going to get a little dark. I'm going to back away so you can see it is still dark. These are actually freezers here. Oh, Candace has some light for me here. These are actually freezers that were used in the Santa Fe days to keep food cold in the Kachina Coffee Shop. One tidbit a lot of people don't know, they thought they were just cabinets maybe under the television set, but they still work as working freezers because the counter used to come out and around kind of like here, where Candace is kind of showing, and that would be the freezers, and then this, where the TV was, going back, was a stovetop grill. And up until the 1995 renovations, there used to be the Indian patterns on the Santa Fe glass right here. So that was a grill, as you could kind of picture it. That was a grill that went flat behind the television set, and these are freezers that was used by the Santa Fe to keep food in the Kachina Coffee Shop closed. So it's about a 19-seat theater here, and it still is a theater. And what's kind of cool is they still have some of the maps up. When it was the Coast Starlight, Amtrak never got rid of the Oregon and Washington maps, so I guess they never sold those off at auction. So that's kind of cool. And again, there is the theater that you were probably very familiar with when this car was the Pacific Parlor. And again, we'll show you some pictures of when this was a Kachina coffee shop. So just kind of keep this in mind, what it looks like now, and we'll show you some pictures as we get along in the presentation. It looks like Candace is over here. There's the vestibule where you're looking at. It's some of the farm fields here on the railroad. And over here is our dinner train. And if you're familiar with our bed and breakfast train, dinner train, we have that parked out here, and we have about 4 other tracks going back. So hopefully you'll get a chance to come out and do our overnight train sometime. And Candace is going to take us up the stairs.
Upstairs.
All right.
I'm going to take over the camera so Robert can show you his favorite place in the whole entire car.
I think this is a lot of people's favorite place. These are the purple swivel chairs from the Amtrak Pacific Parlor car days. They were put here in the late 90s, 98, 99 during the refurb. And of course, if you're a rail fan like me, you'd get here at a really, really early hour in the morning, and you figure out which side is the ocean side, and you'd probably camp out there for the rest of your day, putting all your electronics here so nobody else could sit down. Is this the ocean side? We'll pretend this is the ocean side. Very comfy chairs here. Probably one of the most comfy chairs on Amtrak. There were only 8 of the seats. We want to mention, in case you didn't know, the lounge here, the Pacific Parlor car, was only available for sleeping car passengers. At no point was it ever open for coach passengers. So this car was a very, very special treat that was just open for those who are usually in the sleeper accommodations on the Coast Starlight between Los Angeles and Emeryville, San Francisco, Portland, and Seattle. This was always one of my favorite. As you can see, Wisconsin Great Northern, we're really happy with the condition the car is in. Really, we've made no. Show you the commode. They added a bathroom on here, but really we've made no changes since the family who's owned the railroad here has bought the car, which is kind of cool. So it looks just like the Pacific Parlor car. So. Again, 8 comfy chairs here. I just love these swivel chairs. I think I would eat my meals here, wouldn't I, when we're on the Coast Starlight?
You would, and your wine tasting and cheese tasting.
I'm going to show people our scrapbook. We put together a little scrapbook.
A little scrapbook.
Oh, it's a big scrapbook. I'm going to try to find a picture of the... this was the Kachina coffee shop, which was downstairs. So you can kind of picture, this was the area we showed you. That would have been the TV right here with those cabinets underneath it. But this is what it looked like in the 1950s here. And let me show you what the upstairs would have looked like right where we were. This is right where we were standing right here where those purple swivel chairs were. There were tables here and the stairway right here. I'm going to walk by that in just a minute. And point that out to you. But this area right here where these folks are sitting is right where those purple comfy swivel chairs were. So we'll show you a little bit more of this book, I think, as we go on. If we have time, we'll see. We'll be taking, as I mentioned to some folks later, we're going to do this quick tour. Maybe show you some pictures from the book here. And then what we'll do is open it up if you have some questions you want to ask. So think of some questions you might want to ask about the car. I'll try to answer. I've done a lot of research on the car for the owners here. So think of some questions you might want to have, and we'll go as long as you want. And I'll show you some more pictures from the book too as we go later on. But we have some really cool displays that we want to show you down here.
Paul, we're about to show you how we got from the theater to the upstairs, if you missed it.
Okay. So we have just some displays here. We have some of our brochures here of some of the things to do in our area. So the first section is the purple swivel chairs. This is, over here is a hot bar. And I think Amtrak put this in, I think the original, they put this in like 1998, 1999. And I think the original intention was breakfast. Now, the people who got to ride on the on this car could also opt to have their meals. That was another perk, was they could have their meals instead of eating in their traditional Amtrak dining car. They could have their meals here in the parlor car and actually step foot in the regular Superliner dining cars. So I think the original intention, from what we heard, was that breakfast was going to kind of be a buffet where you would more than likely even serve yourself. So Amtrak put in this hot bar, and I think I've only seen it in operation twice. It did not last very long, but the idea was they put eggs, and bacon, and grits, and biscuits. They would put them here, and then they have plates, and then people could help themselves. From what I heard, it ended up as a total mess. Moving train, 80 miles an hour. People be spilling the food all over the floor. So I think it only lasted a few months, and then later on, they serve seated meals in the table area, which we'll show you, and they would use this to keep the food warm, as like a warming tray table. But I've only seen a self-service the first couple of years, right before 2000, did they actually ever use this.
I only experienced once myself.
Yeah. This is the kind of the couch area, so kind of the second section. Somebody wanted to see how you got up. And I'll pop. It's kind of like the Superliners, and of course, we shouldn't fail to mention that Amtrak Superliners, which you're probably with, were actually based off the Santa Fe design of these high-level lounges and diners and coaches. So we probably wouldn't have the Superliners that we have today. So the stairs is pretty much like the kind of the steep Superliner staircases that you have on a Superliner coach or the Superliner lounges. So nothing, just a little bit fancier. This is kind of the second area of the car, and kind of the lounge section, and it works well for people who want to have tail. Generally, there'd be 2 people at each table, so you'd have a total of 8 people sitting where the purple comfy chairs were, 8 people in here, 2, 2, 2, and 2, and they were kind of just nice for having a wine tasting, or just sitting back having conversations with the people around you. So if you felt like being a little bit more social than having a swivel chair to yourself, this was a kind of a nice place to sit. And this was, the fabric on here was the second redesign. They had a different fabric they put on here in 98 and 99. I believe this was about 2008, 2009. They ended up reupholstering the couch here. But it was kind of a nice place to sit too, because you can definitely see the view and enjoy. We have a couple displays here of items that people have donated from the Santa Fe. So we're not going to show all these off, but we've had a lot of people donate to our nonprofit, the Midwest Rail Rangers, donate a lot of Santa Fe memorabilia. And a couple weekends up here at the Wisconsin Great Northern. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to do it this year. But we hope in 2021, we hope we'll have an open house, a free open house where people can come up on select weekends and walk through the cars and check them out if they want. So unfortunately, because of the virus and stuff, we decided not to do that at all in 2020, but we're hoping 2021. We did a couple last year, and we had a couple, I think 200-300 people show up. Chicago, Twin Cities, all over. It's kind of cool. A couple of other memorabilia people have donated. We got this really cool Santa Fe. And I'm going to got a tie clip from the Santa Fe. And we got a belt buckle. And this was really cool. We found some buttons that would have been off the uniform of a conductor or a trainman. And I don't know how well we can all see that, but there's a Santa Fe. It's pretty cool. So we've got a lot, since the Wisconsin Great Northern has bought the parlor car, we've received a lot of donations. We're always looking for that. So let me show you, and I hope the sun is kind of going down over here, and I hope that's not going to play too much trouble with some of this. But we have some kind of cool Santa Fe memorabilia and Amtrak memorabilia we thought we would show you as we move into the third section of the car. And this is the booth area, and they would use these 6 booths on the Pacific Parlor car to have your meals served to. And the wine tastings would also take place here. This is one of my favorite things, the etched glass. Hopefully you can see this. It still has the Amtrak Coast Starlight Superior Service logo. Hopefully they're seeing that. I don't know, with the sun it's kind of hard.
I can see it.
You see it pretty good? Yeah. Okay. So we've still kept those intact, which is kind of cool. And so on the tables, you could either eat here. They would come through and they would take meal reservations. They said on the Coast Starlight, would you like to eat on the parlor car, or would you like to eat in the diner? And some people would go to the diner, and some people would opt to keep their meals here. And that was kind of this area was for the people dining. And one of the perks of having your meals on the parlor car was there was never community seating. So you'd never be, if you were a party of 2, you'd have a private dining area. If you went into the traditional diner, you'd have to normally seat with probably 2 other people, 2 strangers, like you do now. That was one of the perks, is you'd never be seated with a stranger. So if you're a couple, you'd have the whole booth to yourself. So kind of some of the fun things we have here is a replica 1940 poster that somebody donated.
It might be a little hard to see. Sorry, guys.
There you go. Yeah, it's kind of hard out the windows. And we have some calendars here from the 70s and 80s, some Santa Fe. They still have beautiful calendars even after they, with Native Americans on them from the Southwest, after they got rid of the passenger service. This is kind of cool, and I have a connection to this car because my dad actually rode on the very first inaugural run of this car, and the cool thing, it was literally this car, the 39972 car that Amtrak had. My dad rode on this car. This was on the inaugural run of the Santa Fe Super Chief, the El Capitan, with high-level equipment, and that was July 11th, 1956. My dad was on the first run. He was 19 years old. Here's some memorabilia. We'll try to do our best to show you this. This was a cancellation, a special stamp and cancellation that they would do on the first run. You can see from Chicago to Los Angeles, and you could get this special stamp on an envelope and mail it off. And then this is really cool. These are really rare. These are little commemorative coins that they gave out on the first run. Here, I'm going to show you that side. So these were coins that were given out to passengers on the very first run. We have some fabric that came, and this is pretty rare too. We talked about the Kachina coffee shop downstairs. This is some fabric. This is what seating would have looked like. We were able to get some of the original fabric when Amtrak was refurbishing it and turning it into the theater. This is what the original seat pattern would have looked like. This is what the exterior of the car would have looked like. This is a pretty famous picture. I'm sure you've seen it at train shows or on various advertisements and things like that. And this is a conductor punch from the 1950s from Santa Fe that the Rail Rangers has in our collection. And this is kind of cool. They give this to kids. This is a junior, we have junior rangers and little Amtrak junior conductors. This is a junior conductor, or junior trainman. It was a pin my dad got on that first run back in the day. So that's some of the stuff here. These are some of the original, that famous painting that I showed you. Here's a napkin from Santa Fe. And these are some of the original that you would get, and this was like a fold-out brochure. We'll see if there we go. So gives you what Candace was talking about when we showed you the Kachina coffee shop, which was downstairs, and now we would probably be right about here in this area on the diagram. And so it kind of shows you what this car would have looked like back in the day. And we'll move down here, show you some other good stuff that we got here. Some of the original advertisements. There's another view. I think we showed you the Kachina coffee shop downstairs. And then up here, this is what the upstairs of this car would have looked like back in 1956. These are some of the other advertisements here. We have, this is now you can ride the high level on two famous Santa Fe trains. There's the, and you see it pretty much looks the same. Window configuration and everything. And here's again another advertisement with the Native American on the platform. That's at Albuquerque. And there's, you can see the distinct windows of the high-level lounge compared to the other high-level coaches and things like that. And here at Albuquerque, that was always a tradition. I think it continues in the Amtrak day to day. They do have Native Americans selling food and jewelry and other pottery and things like that on the platform at Albuquerque, because Albuquerque is kind of a long stop. And that was a tradition started in the Santa Fe day. There's a gentleman buying a pottery on the platform at Albuquerque, and with the window configuration, you can see that is a Santa Fe high-level lounge. This is an article from the April 30th, 1960 Saturday Evening Post. So that's some of the oh, we forgot about this table. Just a couple more advertisements here to show you. Of course, Amtrak was, or Santa Fe was very well known for its Native American ads in the Southwest. This is a photo taken, and you can see the lounge car right there because of the windows. See how, if you look at the whole train, you can easily pick out the high-level lounge compared to the diners or coaches because of the unique window configurations of the double level of windows. Again, some other advertisements. This was, again, because of the window configuration. You can see there's a family enjoying the beautiful views of the Southwest. Dad and Mom and the two kids kind of looking out the window. And these are the windows right here that you're looking out. And I love this one. We're just sharing a smoke here. I guess back in the day, you know, people would share a smoke here in the lounge car. That was okay back in the 50s. But with the window configuration, if you look up to the double windows,
I don't want to blind them
you
with
don't want
the
to blind
sun.
them with the sun, but if you look,
I'll
there
go
we go.
here.
So you can kind of see the window configuration on this car really has never changed from the 1950s until today. And so we got some Amtrak for you Amtrak fans. We've shown you a lot of cool Santa Fe stuff. For you Amtrak fans, we're not going to leave you out. Candace is going to show you some of the items that people who had loved the Pacific Parlor car probably may have seen in their time.
Well, hello. I want to give a shout out to Robert Neal. I know he's watching, and Bob Burkhart, one of our former Trails and Rails guides that we used to work with. Nice to see you guys on. So Amtrak took over this car from the Santa Fe in 1971. In 1995, Brian Rosenwald, an Amtrak executive, decided he wanted to save these cars from being scrapped. So he decided to create these beautiful Pacific Parlor cars, and here's some of the marketing things that he did to help with that. You have a wine and beer list. So you have the Coast Starlight's private label wines. They would give you a Coast Starlight stationery set so you could write home or even just to keep as a souvenir. They had tote bags that you could buy. Look at all this cool stuff that Amtrak used to have that you could buy to have memorabilia. You have the dining car menu. What was on the menu? Breakfast, steak and eggs.
That sounds good.
Or French toast with berries.
Are you going to go back there and make some for me?
No.
Yeah, that figures.
This is the older menu. Here's a newer one. You have the bar service menu.
And you can see that was just for the Pacific Parlor Car.
Yeah,
Had their
just
own
for the Pacific Parlor.
had their own menu.
Mr. and Pressman was their logo. It's who they used as their guide. This is the newer menu. Let's see what's on this menu. Breakfast. Fresh scrambled eggs. Lunch could be a wine country pasta. And dinner, you could even have lamb. So like Robert told you, you could eat in the parlor car. Those were meals specifically for the parlor car that you could only get in here. You couldn't get them in the dining car. So then we have some other fun memorabilia and trinkets that Robert and I have collected over the years. First, we'll start with the Coast Starlight teddy bear. They would do trivia on the train, and this little cutie was one of the prizes. Not a lot of those left because Robert won a lot of them. Amtrak has, over the years, issued Christmas ornaments for the different trains. So this one is for the Coast Starlight. One of my favorite things is this copper mug that has the Coast Starlight on it, and they use that to promote the Moscow Mule cocktail drinks that they would sell on the train. For a few years, you would get this cool amenities kit. So we'll open this up and we'll see what was inside. You would get some lotion, a thing of toothpaste, some shampoo, and a bar of soap. So nobody has to be stinky on the train because they'll go make sure that you have stuff to take a bath. So a few other items were where you could buy the t-shirts. Robert has several of those. And it would give you the prices of the cafe lounge stuff on the back there. You could buy a hat. Or even a hand towel for your bathroom. One of the cool things I think is cool is this Coast Starlight Road Atlas. Pretty cool. It's just the right size. Could fit right beside your seat if you needed it to. Not one of those big bulky ones. We've got an Amtrak Coast Starlight pewter keychain they gave out in the 1990s. And this one's kind of sad. It's the last run of the Pacific Parlor cars, February 2nd through the 4th of 2018. And they have the design on the other side too there.
We got lucky enough. Amtrak only gave people about a 2-week heads up that it was going to be the last run of the parlor cars. And we got lucky. We were able to figure it out, and we were able to go on a little bit of the last run. I think we rode from about Sacramento up to Seattle. But they gave these keychains out as to those people who went on the last run. Oh, is it time for cocktails?
It is time for cocktails.
So this is the bar area that you're probably very familiar with on the Pacific Parlor car. Again, has not changed at all really from those days. And we even have the Coast Starlight where they keep the wines and cheese, and oh look, it's fake wine and cheese.
Aww.
Oh.
That's alright.
What do we have up here?
So we have a few more things to show you, and then we're going to take your questions. We have a coffee mug with Mr. and Pressman on it. We have a Coast Starlight reusable coffee mug with the lid.
So you know the story behind those, right?
I do know the story, only because you told me.
Okay.
But if you bought this particular mug with the lid on it...
And this was on all trains about, I think, maybe people could correct me, like late 90s. They were sold on all the different trains. This line.
Apparently, if you bought this coffee mug and brought it with you, you got free coffee for life.
Literally for life. I don't know if anybody else out there watching knows this, but it was like a deal, and it lasted for, I think, about 4 months on Amtrak in the mid-90s. Literally your life for a $5 coffee mug. on all Amtrak trains, and I think they realized what a mistake that was. And there's still a few people who I will try them. I'll bring it to the lounge car.
Some of the old will still do
We'll
it.
still
for you.
honor it, but technically, if you bought that mug, you should get unlimited free coffee, even today on Amtrak. It doesn't work so well, but it's kind of one of those funny stories.
So here's a Coast Starlight coffee mug. I try to get Robert to let me have my morning coffee out of this, but it's just not happening. So in the millennium, on 1/1 of 2000, they gave out these champagne mugs, or glasses, I'm sorry. So
Let's see if we can see this here. This was just for the people on the who celebrated the millennium on the Coast Starlights. These are really rare, but it says Amtrak into the new millennium, and then hopefully you can see the date 1/1/2000. So only the people on that one train who was celebrating 99 to 2000 got these very rare champagne. What do we have here?
we have a wine glass that you would, just for $5 each, you could buy these. Pretending I'm pouring you up some wine.
Oh, okay.
And then you have a nice bottle of wine.
And it was private label, which was the amazing thing.
Yeah.
Was believe it, Amtrak for a very year or two actually had their own wine label, which is pretty amazing.
It says bottled for the Coast Starlight by Castoro Wines, San Miguel, California.
All right.
And it kind of has a history on the back here too.
Of the train or the what is
It talks about the wine, so it has a
Okay.
history of the wine on the back there. That's
Okay.
in the bottle. And there's actually still wine in here.
it? Yes, I have not. We're saving that for after the presentation.
And then you could also buy a bottle of wine on the Coast Starlight after the wine tastings. Then they would give you this. You could buy this nice bag also to go with it. So this is one of the wines that was featured, the Columbia Valley wine.
Yep. It was also the name of one of the cars, Columbia Valley.
Yep.
Yes.
So all the cars were pretty much named after wine country, thanks to Brian. He's a wine connoisseur
And here's a list of
the
some of the
histories
wines
the
they
wine.
used to sell. Back when the wines were good on the Coast Starlight, there was Pinot Gris, Pinot Noir, Greg Norman. If you were on Coast Starlight for many years, this was one of the ones they always featured at the wine tastings, the Greg Norman Petit Syrah
Ooh, a Riesling.
and the Jekyll Riesling. So these are some of the popular wines. Back when they had good wine, back maybe 10 years ago on Amtrak, those are some of the good ones.
Then just for fun, we have a Santa Fe coffee thermos here that was donated to us from the... It also has the CB&Q logo on the
Yes.
top there.
The Santa Fe.
And it was from the Eastern Region Division.
You want to show people the kitchen real quick?
Yeah, we can show people.
This is probably where you never got to go, or
This-
maybe you did and you got yelled at by the.
The
But you
attendant.
could get a really good look back at the car now. You see where we started, purple swivelly chairs, the kind of the dining area, and are the couches and the dining area, and then here's the bar where the Amtrak attendant would mostly stand, and this is kind of behind the bar. There's a freezer. They keep a lot of the wines and then Candace is over here. They used to have a coffee cappuccino maker back here.
Coffee maker's still here.
It is. That is. Does it have the Amtrak logo on it? It does.
Yeah.
Yep. You still have the. A little hard to see, but it still has the Amtrak logo
Yeah.
on it. Like I said, we have not changed very much about this car. We're pretty happy with
Convection
it.
oven.
They heat up your food. Yeah.
A nice little cabinet to store stuff. Nothing in there right now. Too fun.
No.
More refrigerated area.
It's nice and cool in there.
Well, here's my favorite part.
Are you gonna take people out the back way? So they could get out, and normally what would be right here, they would put it up against the dining car. So a lot of the food that was cooked in the parlor car, or was served in the parlor car, was actually cooked in the regular Superliner dining car, and that would be right here. and they would just bring the food in to be served, because all there was here is a convection oven. So they would use this door to bring in the food that was cooked. And of course, we don't have a Superliner diner behind us. We have the 134 Minnesota commercial engine out there. That's where we started. You can kind of see there's our dinner train and other things. But normally the Superliner diner would be here. And you want to show people your...
Yeah, this is really cool because this wasn't here. You had to go all the way back to your room or back to the lounge car. But now, the Wisconsin Great Northern has added their own bathroom.
Well, we want to mention originally in the Santa Fe, Amtrak took it out in the 70s and they made it a storage closet. Original bathroom back here as it would have been in 1954. So that's really the only refurb. That's the only area that's kind of changed. But that way, because we run this car by itself, so we have to have a bathroom in here.
Yep.
So why don't you go that way and I'll take them down this hallway and we'll meet up back at the bar. So this is where you'd probably come into the parlor car from the dining car, if you remember, on the Coast Starlight. And what do you got there?
Well, if you want to know more about the parlor car, Robert and I have written a book along with 12 other books, I believe now. It's hard to keep count. We've done a lot in the 8 years that we've been married. You can go on MidwestRails.com to purchase this book about the Sky Parlor. It's got lots of colorful pictures. It tells you about the history. And they're $20.
And we got to show them this too, that the PA, which I think also still has Amtrak on it somewhere. It still works. So you want to make an announcement? You can do that.
What do I want to say?
Say hello to all those people watching us in Chicago, or some people all over the country are watching us.
Thank you for joining us today, and we will now be taking your questions and answering those for you the best we know. Thanks for joining us, and have a great evening.
All right, look at that. So I'll show you some more pictures out of the book here, and then we'll go ahead and take your questions or anything you want to see again. We'll take you down and show you on the car here. We want to do it right here. Candace will grab the camera, and I'll show you a couple pictures out of the book. Hopefully the lighting's good. It's kind of interesting about Northwest Wisconsin. It doesn't, this time of year, it doesn't get dark till like 9:30, which was kind of something that surprised us when we moved up here. But it's not even 10 o'clock. It's not completely pitch black, so it's kind of weird the sunset times and everything up here. This is a book that we put together to show people the car, and we do want to give a lot of credit to. We mentioned him a couple times. This is a gentleman. Hopefully you can see it. His name is Brian Rosenwald, and he was an Amtrak executive. And the whole idea from 1971 until 1994, these served as just a regular lounge car on a variety of different Amtrak trains. They were about to be scrapped in 1994, 1995. All the cars were sitting down in Beech Grove, Indiana. And they were going to be scrapped because they really didn't need these. They had enough Superliner sites. They did not need these cars, and they were either going to sell them off or scrap them, trying to figure out what to do. And the Amtrak executive, Brian Rosenwald, came up with the idea. He said, well, wouldn't it be nice to have a special lounge car just for sleeping car passengers, something luxurious, like an old parlor car back in the day? And he was able to convince Amtrak to do it on the Coast Starlight, which is one of the prettiest routes. And to me, the Coast Starlight and the California Zephyr are my two favorite routes by far. But he was able to let him convince that. They gave him about $800,000 per car for the 5 cars. Remember, the 6th one was sold off and not ever renovated. So he got to renovate 5 of his idea. And he is a wine and cheese connoisseur, and so his whole idea of doing the wine and cheese tastings was all that they did was all because of this gentleman, Brian Rosenwald. So we can thank him, and he actually got a chance to come up here last October and got to ride on the car, and it was such an experience. And we taped an interview, and maybe later this year we'll play that interview for you. In fact, he sat right here and talked about his experiences.
We have a question.
Okay, I guess we can start firing away with that. I want to show him a couple other things, but yeah,
Sure.
Let's fire away.
Joe wants to know, how do you get to the sleeper cars on this train? Lower level or upper level?
Good question. So the sleeping cars would normally be, the dining car would normally be always positioned that way so that they could bring the food in. And the sleeping cars were always over here. And to walk from this car to the other cars would be on the upper level, just like they are on Amtrak today. The Santa Fe high levels were compatible with the Superliners. That components on the lower level, so you would have to walk just from the upper level to upper level. So if you were on the lower level of a roomette on the lower level, and you wanted to get to the theater, which is also a lower level, you would have to go up the stairs in your sleeping car and walk into the upper level of the high level lounge, and then you'd walk down the stairs to get to, just like Amtrak today and any of the Superliners. None of them were compatible. Let me show you another picture or two here real quick. Let's see here. There's I want to show briefly show you the interiors, because we haven't shown you what the early diagrams, but not the later diagrams. There've been a couple of refurbs up here in the interior. So this is kind of the first version of what it looked like. This was taken in the early 70s. This is just after Amtrak took over the car. You can still see the original Santa Fe decoration there in the background. So this was early Amtrak, but they changed very little about the car. And then let me show you, I love this one. This was the 1970s. Of course, we know Amtrak went orange and purple everywhere. So this is after Amtrak had their first refurbishment of the car. That's what it looked like. So this is really the second version of the interior of this car. It has the Amtrak orange all over, the orange plastic booths, and the round tables with the ashtrays and the drinks were kind of in the center there. So that was the second refurb of these. Let me show you the third refurb, which is right here. 80s. So again, the third refurbishment, they took away a lot of the orange. Some of it still existed. The bar area where we took you was actually made into an enclosed box. So there really wasn't a bar. The attendant was behind this little box. And the seats, if you've been, I think the 20th Century has done some 2007 or 2008, they had the Great Dome on, Ocean View. This is kind of the same seating, the square tables and the seats. And then the third reconfiguration, or the fourth reconfiguration, is where we are now. So the interior has been renovated at least four times. I showed you the 50s, the 70s, this is kind of the 80s, and then this is now the 90s. So again, you'll learn about that in our book, or if you get the chance to come up here and do one of our open houses. So anybody else have any other questions?
Who owns this car now? From Nancy.
Nancy, good question, Nancy, and thanks everybody for asking your questions tonight. This car was owned by Amtrak until, first owned by the Santa Fe, then owned by Amtrak, and Amtrak actually auctioned these cars off. They were put up for auction in November of 2018. It took them a few months to announce the winning bidder, but by spring of 2019, so spring of last year, It is owned by the Wisconsin Great Northern Railroad, this car, fully owned by and two of the other cars are owned by, we mentioned a gentleman in Texas. He's probably going to use them stationary. We heard he's going to set up his model railroad in them. Don't know if that's true or not. And then the other two are owned by the Michigan Steam Railroading Institute over in Owasso, northwest of Detroit. So they're all in private ownership right now, kind of like a private car if you've done a private car trip with the 20th Century Rail Club or Zephyr Route, Mike Abernathy, or any of the other private car owners. They're owned by private individuals. So yeah, no longer owned by Amtrak, which is really, really sad that people can't enjoy these on a daily basis. But I'm also in turn glad that we had some people like our owners, Greg and Mardell, Vreeland, our owners here, who valued these cars, and I mean they could have done anything they wanted with these cars. They could have run them just for themselves. I mean, they could have said, "This is my private car. I'm not going to let anybody else on this. I'm going to put it on the back of Amtrak and go ride all over the country, my family and I." But the owners here are very generous and decided to preserve this and open it for the cheese and wine tastings and open it to the public. And we want to mention also, we should mention that unfortunately we're not going to be running our season this year. Normally we run this car twice on Sundays at 11 a.m. and 2 p.m. for wine and cheese tastings. We take you up into the national park. About 5 miles north of us here is the St. Croix National Scenic Riverway. It's one of 2 national park units in Wisconsin. So here at the Wisconsin Great Northern, we offer it on Sundays for $50. You get the train ride, wine and cheese. You get 4 Wisconsin wines, 4 Wisconsin cheese, and then a little fruit plate with some grapes or some strawberries or something like that. And then you get the ride, and we're usually on there with some of our memorabilia, and Candace and I are usually your hosts. But unfortunately with the virus this year, just like a lot of the trips with the 20th Century, we're not running our season this year. We're hoping to be back May 1st of 2021. We're hoping. It's just, as you can see by the car, it's really hard to do. It's really hard to do social distancing, and the thing is, we could do it, but would we be giving the experience here that people would come to enjoy and that you're paying for? I mean, what do you do? Do you put up plastic dividers between the booths? I mean, we have these, but I mean, out here, it's just not the experience we want people to have here on the Sky Parlor car. So we've just decided it's better we're going to focus on collecting more of our memorabilia, putting together more information about the car, and then when next spring comes around, we'll be ready to welcome everybody back. We hope you'll come back.
Robert Neal thinks a walkthrough of other equipment would be fun for other live videos.
Okay. Well, we hope this is going well. That's what I mentioned to the 20th Century folks, that we got about 30 or 40 other cars up here that we could do. So if you're enjoying this program, we'll let the board members know, the 20th Century Railroad Club. We would love to do more of these for you, and this is what our meetings might be like. I know I'd love to see everybody's smiling face and be at Union Station with all the trains pulling in and out, all those people looking at their watch. I got to catch the 8:05 back to Milwaukee. My train to Morton Grove leaves at 8:35. I got to go. But I miss that. I haven't been to Chicago since February, and I miss it. My family's there. This is a hard time for us all, and I wish we were all together right now, but that's what our programs might be like for the next year, I guess. I don't know. But we'd love to be part of it. And we also want to mention that if you are enjoying the program, give us a like too, the Midwest Rail Rangers. We're the nonprofit 501c3 that does these programs with the 20th Century Railroad Club. We were planning to do, I think, 5 or 6 programs in narration this year for you guys. We were going to have a 4-day trip that came up here where we were going to get to ride on here. We were going to go to the museum in Duluth, over to Osceola. We were going to have a lot of fun, go to Amish country. We're hoping to run that tour maybe next year. But we are doing these virtual programs also for the Midwest Rail Rangers. We have 9 other programs scheduled between now and November. So like our Facebook page at the Midwest Rail Rangers. Check us out at railrangers.org all one word, railrangers.org. And we got a bunch of these programs, some of them live, some of them pre-taped. And we'd love to do more for the 20th century, too, if their board wants, and we're having fun. So appreciate that, Robert. I know you're a longtime member of the club, too. Any other questions anybody has? Or
Not yet. Anybody else?
We'll hang out for a few minutes here if anybody wants to know anything about it, or if you have memories. Do you guys remember riding this car up until a few years ago?
Yeah, share your memories.
Share your memories. Maybe you had a funny story. Well, we'll give you a few more minutes for questions, then we'll wrap it up. One of my favorite stories that I always tell, Candace kind of alluded to, was that there used to be trivia questions. They kind of cut that out a while ago, but they used to do trivia questions during the wine and cheese tastings. And during the 2009 recession, I lost my job, and I found another one pretty soon, but they weren't able to start me for another 4 months or so. So I had about 4 months between jobs, and I just racked up Amtrak Guest Reward points. And I think I had like 500,000 Amtrak Guest Reward points. And my best friend from high school lived in California. And so I would do this crazy loop. Like every 2 or 3 weeks, we'd ride usually the Texas Eagle the long way through San Antonio. And then on those days it went through with the Sunset Limited, and it would connect through El Paso and over to LA. Go visit my friend for a few days in LA. And then hop on the northbound Coast Starlight, get off in Portland, and take the Empire Builder back around to Chicago. So it was like a 6-day loop, and I think it cost like 40 or 50,000 points. So I was able to do it like 6 or 7 times over those 4 months, and it always seemed like I got the same cruise. I don't know if it was the days that I was going, but they didn't seem to recognize me, and I kept winning the trivia contest every single time. So I have like 7 of those teddy bears that were prizes. I guess, I don't know if that was cheating or not, but one of the questions was, and I want to show this picture before it gets too dark. Does anybody, here's a question, I guess I could ask this and do a little trivia tonight. Does anybody know the popular movie that was shot on one of the Pacific Parlor cars? It was a 2003 movie. I'll give you a few seconds to think of that, but it was a few minutes of the whole movie. It was at the very end of the movie. It's kind of a thriller movie, 2003, kind of an action movie. Anybody know? I have a picture right here.
I know.
You know, give him a chance to answer. There could be a little lag, you know. Give him a chance to find the. Any guesses? Is anybody guessing?
No, nobody's guessed yet, but there could be a little lag.
Alright. We'll give it a minute or two.
Oh, wait, we got some more questions here.
Okay. Well, I'll answer that one. Everybody. They actually filmed, if you watch the movie, 2003 movie, Job, they filmed a couple scenes on this car, but the sister car, the 39974. Couple scenes of I think it was all about stolen cars. I was not a big fan of the movie myself, just personal opinion. But they filmed a couple of the very end scenes were actually filmed on a Pacific Parlor car. Friend, and if you're a fan of, what is the show? I've only seen a couple episodes. Oh, Big Bang Theory. They did with Sheldon, and I'm not a big. I don't watch much TV or movies, but they allude to the Pacific Parlor car on one of the episodes on the second season of The Big Bang Theory, but it was not filmed on the car and didn't look anything like it. But one of the actors says, "Where can I get a beer, or where can I get some alcohol on the train?" And Sheldon is like, well, let me tell you about the Pacific Parlor car. Built by the Santa Fe Railroad in 1956, and all the other actors groan. and so I think that's the only really mentions of it. So, but if you watch The Italian Job, the last It might be on Netflix or something. Just watch the last like 5 minutes of the movie, and you'll
The
see
closing scene.
The closing scene, really. So what else do we have? Anybody?
Jennifer is asking.
Jennifer?
The Santa Fe had 2 prototype high-level built prior to ordering the rest of the fleet, which differed slightly from the rest of the high levels. What became of those 2 prototypes?
Oh, very good question, Jennifer. And I kind of stumbled across those. There were 2 prototypes that were built, as Jennifer mentioned. They were actually coaches, so there was no prototype high-level lounge, but there were 2 prototype coaches, and they were a little bit different. Their windows kind of slanted inward, and both of them are actually, I believe the numbers were 9900 and 9901, and this is off the top of my head, I could be totally wrong, but I think it's 9900, 9901 were at least the Amtrak numbers for the coaches. And both of them are, along with a lot, and I mean a lot, of the high-level Santa Fe equipment, are kept in a train yard just on the Illinois side of St. Louis called Gateway Rail Services. And a lot of these cars, there has to be 50 to 60, maybe 70 of the old Santa Fe cars parked at this rail facility called Gateway Rail. It's not rail fans, unfortunately. And kind of what the whole plan was, and I could probably talk about this for an hour, but I'll try to sum it up in like 2 minutes. Gateway Rail Services, it used to be called Illinois Traction Assembly, they had the idea of taking these cars and they were going to use them possibly for state service. So they were hoping when Illinois and Indiana and Michigan around the Midwest, we're going to need new trains for the corridor service. All the equipment, which it seems like they're going to, that seems to change all the time. They were going to take these cars and refurbish the interiors of them and then reuse them for state service. But for one reason, the whole project fell through. And so these high-level equipment, including the 39971, the unrefurbished, remains parked in this huge rail yard just 10 minutes on the Illinois side of St. Louis. And both the prototype coaches are actually still there. We were down there in February of this year, right before the virus outbreak, and we saw them there. And you could see the windows are kind of differently. And if you'd like to see a picture, if you're really interested in those, Jennifer, drop me an email. BOARD, board, like a lumber board or a board of directors, board at Rail Rangers, all one word, board at railrangers.org, O-R-G. Drop me an email, and when we get home tonight or tomorrow morning, I can send you the pictures of those prototypes. We were down there February. So if you're interior and exterior, so if you're really interested, I can send you some pictures and you can see what they look like. Just drop me an email, Jennifer, and it sounds like you really know your stuff. But they are in Illinois, sitting in a rail yard, probably for sale if the price is right. But pretty rough shape from what I remember. Interiors, the seats were all ripped up, and yeah. Any other questions?
Nope, I think you've pretty much answered everyone's questions.
All right. Okay.
They wanted to know if the railroad was operating this year, which you answered.
Yeah, I'll just mention that, the Wisconsin Great Northern, we've decided not to run this season. We will be back online May 1st, 2021. And we got some really... I'm horrible at keeping secrets, but I'm going to have to. We have some really exciting news. I wish I could share everybody tonight, but I can't. We have a major acquisition that we're just about to sign off on up here. It'll be big news when it breaks. And maybe we can do a program on this for you this fall. But we're having a major acquisition up here, and we're going to be focusing on that.
There you go. You're back.
Anyway, sounds like we lost our signal there. We are in the boonies of northwest Wisconsin, so I appreciate your patience. We do have a major acquisition that we're working on, and we'll tell you more of the details about. And the Rail Rangers will be part of this. One of the cars will be a museum car that we're going to be working on with this special acquisition. It's going to be big news. It's going to be national news. It will be in the Chicago Tribune.
Okay. Quit talking before you spill the beans.
Huh? Who says that?
You're gonna spill the beans.
All right. It's going to be really cool. So next year's our 25th anniversary, our silver anniversary. So we're planning something really, really special for next year. Yeah, I better stop talking. So we're gonna be having a really cool season. Look forward to seeing everybody up here. So any other questions?
Nope. Jennifer just says thank you for your time and your efforts.
Well, we hope everybody had a good time tonight. I guess we should wrap it up. Hope everybody had fun. We try to do our best. We have more equipment out here, so maybe we'll be back with you. Again, this is kind of just an experiment. And we miss you guys. I just want to say that on behalf of our board of directors, I'm Robert Tabern, the president. Robert Neal's our vice president. Dave Poole is our treasurer. Kathy Brecker's our secretary. Candace is our educational coordinator. Our docents, Lowell Olberg, Joe Kaczynski, so many other people.
Steve Snyder.
Steve Snyder, Fred Glur is one of our docents. Mentioned Lowell, and cover everybody.
I think so. Yeah. If we left someone out and you're watching, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's been a long day.
It's been a long day, but it's fun, and we just want to say we really miss. It's such a weird time. We were in Japan actually riding trains when this whole virus thing broke out, and we were supposed to be there for 2 weeks. And we were 4 days into this planning for 2 years to Japan to ride trains, and this whole thing just broke, and we decided to come back. We're like, we have to come back. And it's just been so weird, because we've been so active. We're doing programs on the South Shore, 20th Century Railroad Club, Wisconsin Great Northern, even things like Train Fest is canceled. It's just weird, and we just hope everybody's safe. That's the important thing. So that we can all be together. Again and ride trains. And I'm looking for as much as everybody is, because we miss you guys. We really do. So until then, hope to see you again maybe this fall up here. Stay in touch. Check out railrangers.org for some of our other programs we'll be doing.
Like us on Facebook.
We're Midwest Rail Rangers 20th Century Railroad Club, and we hope to be back. Hope you had a fun time tonight, and hope you're enjoying our programs.